Okay people, here we go. We are gonna check out this new and debut album from ATLiens. I think it's self-released. Is it self-released? Yeah, we got 13 tracks here. It is an album that is 37 minutes 48 seconds. So not the longest LP that you're gonna hear, but a stealthy amount of tunes that we've got. I haven't been like massive on ATLiens in the last 5 years or so. Apart from Coming For You, that's a fantastic tune which I think came out a couple of years ago. Tracks like Chief or Witch Doctor or a collaboration with a certain someone who shall not be named, but that track is still fantastic. I feel fine with saying that because I feel like the good bits in that tune were done by ATLiens. But anyway, here we go. Enough from me going into this, of course, and as always with an open mind, so let's crack on with this debut LP from ATLiens, Leaving the World Behind, kicking off with the opener, which is called Into This World, which is an introduction that's just over a minute long. Okay, let's go. Okay, just going to carry on. Nice little atmospheric introduction there. The second track on the LP is Black Sheep with Gigi Magree. Would have enjoyed if the introduction was a little bit longer. You know, you want the introduction here as well just to build on that a little bit and just build that atmosphere a little bit more for the first proper tune of the LP, if you know what I mean. Because of that brief introduction, the tone shift feels a little bit odd. It's okay. I mean, the heaviness is fine. The vocal is one that I think is a bit catchy, to be fair. I can see myself, you know, enjoying that more when I hear it more. But yeah, the heaviness it's just fine. It's not the most, I think, especially after an introductory kind of minute like we had, you're just like you're expecting something a little bit more compelling, I think, as the first like full tune for the album. Following that up, can't really say too much more than that. I've heard that kind of thing from them before a fair few times now. But following up at track number 3, we have Finding Silence with Northside Hollow, I imagine, on the vocal duty here. Who's ready for the big? Bigs in the chat. Bigs in the chat. Mr. Big, you serve me well. Every single time. This was the kind of build that I wanted the previous track to have, to be fair, at the beginning. Yeah, the production here is not fantastic, and it's pretty much just like a rehashed version of the heaviness that we got in the track before, and like I was saying earlier, quite a few tracks of theirs in the last few years that we've heard and that they've released, you know. It's a shame because this vocal is actually really nice. It's got a real charm to it from Northside Hollow. I think again it's just fine. Some of the sounds are quite cool that are being used, some of the background flittering kind of things, sounds hovering above the track, but it's not exactly a creative idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing really happening. It's just just like a slight variation of that, and that's, you know, exactly what we got for the second track as well. So reinforcing the idea, well, in my opinion anyway, that the vocal was very nice and there was a lot of story and a lot of charm kind of built up in that vocal performance. I thought that was very good from Northside Hollow. And, you know, in a way you could say that the heaviness, maybe the vocal is more of the point, and that is the thing delivering the good for the tune. So the drop just kind of has to complement it and not take away too much limelight from the vocal, if you know what I mean, by not doing all that much, which is what we get, drops that don't do very much at all. But then, you know, you could counter that by saying it's not a Northside Hollow album, it's an ATLiens album, and so far we haven't really had anything particularly impressive from them on the drop front yet. But we now have track number 4, which is Losing My Mind, featuring Cassidy. Or at least I assume it's Cassidy. The X is where the A should be. Okay. Mate, that is the ATLiens that I used to love. Don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of like percussive kind of like weirdness going on there that's a little bit jarring. I'm not going to say exactly which bit because people are just going to go, oh yeah, of course he's talking about that. But that kind of vocal play, that kind of vocal sample, tone, all of that, that's the exact kind of thing that made them amazing initially. That kind of chopping, that demonic, haunted, alien kind of sound, that kind of voice. Really cool. Really sick. That's what made me fall in love with their music in the first place, and I can't believe we're getting it again after all these years of just not having it at all, basically. Sick. Let's carry on. Just that. I love how demonic and evil and like just chilling that kind of vocal sample is, that vox. Damn. Oof. Give me a demonic voice, I will slurp it up like, you know, Scottish broth. I'm an absolute sucker for that kind of vocal sample that they perfected over the earliest years of their discography. Coming back here, making a return for the debut album. I'm a big fan. As each drop kind of progresses, there's a couple of the more background touches that are a little bit at odds musically with everything else going on. Some of the percussion feels a bit kind of scant and just like overly metallic. That creates a bit of a jarring feel. And then the drops are also quite short, and the track overall is quite short, when maybe drawing that one out a bit, creating a bit more atmosphere with it, in the same way that a Witch Doctor from years ago did, would have been nice. But the vocal from Cassidy was alright as well, fit in decently well with the demonic vocal sample. Next up though, first production collaborator, I think, that we've had on the album so far, with Dion Timmer, IMY, which I imagine is I Miss You. That is extremely Dion Timmer. That kind of sound and that kind of vocal is just... Like, I'm all for something a bit unconventional and a bit different and a bit abstract, but when the main sound doesn't like align with the backdrop, with the percussion beneath it. I like the idea and I like the sounds being used, I think, but the overall execution of it needs a lot more sharpness, a lot more tightness, you know? Before I forget to mention, why are we still doing this? I mean, I know this track must have been made like months and months ago, where that was still like a new thing, or like a fresh idea, a cool thing. Like, oh, doing a dubstep oriented track. Now we're just gonna fucking lob some. It is psytrance, but you just know that there are people out there who would call it techno because of the fact that the kicks are the thing kind of driving it forward without much other kind of like progression going on, percussion, going on there. We've moved past that by now. I had to get that out of the way. The rest of it, I think the first half is pretty good idea. The descending chopper kind of vibe. I think the sounds involved were good. The vocal, like, decently catchy. That in combination with the sound usage was alright. I think the sound was way too muffled. It didn't have like a sharpness or a sheen to it. But yeah, I mean, the concept is often the most important bit. For me, I prefer it to like have that sharpness in sound. Didn't quite have that, but the idea was pretty good in that first half. Just a little bit predictable with where it goes in the second half. But next up we have Train Song, which is an interlude, another one that's just over a minute long. Pretty early to be having another interlude, I think. Feels like this has come around quite quickly, but might be a reflection on the fact that a lot of these songs are quite short-lived. Okay. Where are all the lo-fi YouTube mix lovers at? Like, I could have that on in the background for hours, and I know that I would get a lot done. Next one is Flowers with Denise Borquez. I just can't really say anything other than fine. Vocal, fine. Drops, just hardly doing anything. I want to say more, but I don't really know what to comment on. The vocal is on top of the instrumental, and it's not bad. It's just nothing's really happening. The notes being hit with the vocal, the lyrics are fine. Just agreeable stuff. And then the drops just kind of follow suit in that respect, At track number 8, we have Cutting Ties with One True God. Now, I am a massive fan of One True God. He's one of the best in house music, dark house music at the moment, if not the best. Let's see how this track pans out, how they combine and collaborate. I mean, using clicks is quite a good way to kind of circumvent having a rough snare, because a click is always going to sound pretty clean. I actually quite like the minimalism of that, leaving a bit of space, letting it breathe, and combined with One True God's kind of breathy, atmospheric voice. I think it works. I think it's alright. Yeah, I do hear that. Going for a similar kind of thing in the previous tune, so having this one directly after, maybe the impact of it in terms of what it's going for isn't felt as much. I mean, this is another thing that producers are doing loads now. Just like ending with a bit of breakbeat, like kind of D&B, That second drop switch, not quite for me. I personally would have preferred, just doing the same drop, but having it a bit more embellished, more stuff going on in the background, just building on what we got in the first drop. But I also do get the pace switch for that second drop, just putting a bit more energy into the tune. Generally speaking, I think there's a really good kind of chemistry there going on between ATLiens and One True God. Again, I think there's a good complementation there, as with the track just before. But with this one, I think for me anyway, the idea that we get in the heaviness, at least in the first half, is better. Like, they really go in on that minimalism, and the clicks work, and there's a lot of space there, and I think that's just executed quite well. Vocals alright. It's not like one of One True God's like most memorable or like, you know, really eerily gripping, if you know what I mean. But again, still complements what it lies on top of. So not a bad tune, that. Not a bad tune. And we've got 5 more to go, kicking off with Never Getting You Back with Yultron, which is a name I haven't heard in quite a while.
I'm never getting you back, that's a fact. I know they're all gonna make sure of that. I'm never getting you back. Turn around and telling them everything, all the things between us. I'm never getting you back.
Definitely didn't see that coming. It's pretty like hyper D&B like. Okay, we're dipping in and out of genres. Quite interesting there. Again, it's a case of liking the first half quite a bit, and then I think that drum and bass switch up does feel a little bit. Someone was saying earlier, like a little bit comically sped up, and that's kind of how it felt to me as well. It just kind of like a cartoon where the kind of protagonists are just chasing each other and their legs are kind of, you know, running in overtime kind of thing, like looking like circles because they're running so fast. That's the kind of image that it provided for me. But the vocal was nice. I like that kind of purposeful first drop that we got, kind of chilled house format, but then also had quite a bit of like aggression to it in the way it was like motoring forward. It's just that second drop that just really puts a bit of a spanner in the works, if you know what I mean, like going out of nowhere into that D&B. Like, there's no warning for that at all, even in the build. There's no kind of even like a hint that might happen. Really took me off guard, and then it goes back into the kind of housey thing again, I think, after that. So it just feels like a little bit of an add-on and puts the rest of the context of the tune in a little bit of a weird place. But I'm going to run with enjoying that first half, because I did enjoy that first half, and everything kind of tied together in that, you know, initial minute and a half or so pretty well. But next up we have Be Your Ghost featuring Ronit. Yeah, pretty menacing feel to that so far. Quite dagger-like, quite like insistent with the sounds being used there. Quite gravelly and earthy, taking it in a nice dark avenue at this point in the LP, with a few more tracks to go after this one. Okay, nice. No like unexpected switch up going on for this one. Yeah, honestly, this is the kind of thing that, again, for me, just maybe lacking like a demonic vocal to go with it. That's the only thing I would add, because that kind of gristle, that kind of earthy, gravelly sound is what made me love them initially, you know, with proper like nice production, nice and rounded production. Everything kind of worked there, I think, instrumentally. Not doing too much. I'm not sat here like, oh wow, this is like a boundary breaking idea or anything like that. But for me, this is them like re-engaging with their roots, bringing back what got them initially very big into a debut album, like 9 years on or so from when they first started properly putting music out there. So I'm really appreciative of that, for them to have at least a couple tracks here, like maybe 2 or 3, where they're really bringing back in their original sound. I think is commendable. People who are fans of their music, like from the beginning, just want to hear a little bit more of that maybe. And they're doing that cool thing of just bringing it back in so many years later for their debut album. So I'm appreciative of that. But next up, we have Soul on Fire featuring Cara K with the Yuki Boys. Okay. Ooh. Honestly, going in on that minimal vibe again, and I'm not mad about it. I'm not against it. I don't think there is too much space. I think there was some pretty good gap filling going on there. I think it's quite clever how initially they have those gaps just to like kind of lure you in, and then it's like boom, 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 and all those little background touches kind of firing off. Again, I'm not mad about the minimalism approach. It is a bit of a micro drop situation. Not gonna lie, I think that even maybe levels up on the ones before that have been super minimal as well. I actually really enjoyed how each drop that we got there progressed, how they picked up, and it never goes like overboard. The placement of sounds is very clever. Again, the vocals pretty good, matching the kind of ghostly, echoey feel of the track overall. I think it is important sometimes to kind of run with a style and try and do it a couple of times over the course of an LP just to give it identity. But, you know, I hear what other people are saying if they're not about it. Penultimately, on the LP, we have Sinking featuring Tomb and also with Grim. That snare does not fit. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't. It does no work, pal. It does no work. Yeah, we were on a pretty good run, I think, of tunes on the LP, but this one does bring it back down a little bit. That is just very without the rounded feel and sound that quite a few tracks on this LP do have, to be fair. Multiple points on this album so far as we head into the final cut where the sound is actually really good. Just like a really nice roundedness to the sound overall, but that is unfortunately not one of them. The elements there do not work together very well. It's got an empty feel to it. Just not a lot that's kind of gluing those different elements together. Just kind of sapped the energy out of the LP following the good run of tracks that we got up to that point. But let us proceed with the final tune of the LP, which is the title tune featuring Coasting. I'm leaving the world behind. Again, it's just fine. It's just fine. Like, these don't add anything to the album, really. They don't add anything to their discography. I'm just like, come on, like, what is actually happening here? Like, what is going on? Where is the individuality or proper creativity that is adding something to this LP and pushing it in a different avenue or direction, or allowing us to see it in a new light? With the final cut of the LP, man, I mean,
5 cents and a kind of interdimensional level as well. But that's the end of the road for me. What I want to do
Yeah, not much else to say about that as a closer for their debut album. Just a little bit meek, a little bit tepid, if I'm being honest, and in combination with the penultimate cut as well. Not the grandest way to finish off your first full-length studio LP. But there are some good tunes here. There are some very good tracks here, I think. And I'm very happy and appreciative of the fact that they brought some of that style back in when it's been virtually absent from their release schedule, their discography for that time, when I haven't been that big on their music. There's a good amount of variety, I think, here as well. Some of the vocals, whilst not like completely memorable or time-stopping or anything like that, they're decent and good, which is also quite hard to do, to have the vocals blend and complement the instrumentals that they've made. There's just enough evidence, I think, of, production not quite being there, ideas that could have been pushed further, tracks that could have been a lot longer. There's not much of an album feel here either, I wouldn't say, because of that. Because of these tracks feeling quite short-lived, it's like it kind of flits from one thing to another a little bit too quickly and doesn't sit and dwell with particular ideas for long enough. A couple of them are superfluous that, and they could have been cut, with a couple of the tracks that we do get beyond that give more to the album, give it more identity, give it more individuality and more character. They could have been way longer. Look forward to seeing what you guys will say about it in the comments of the YouTube video once I've chopped it up and put it up on there. But yeah, guys, that is going to be my take after hearing it once of this new and debut LP from ATLiens called Leaving the World Behind. And thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.